older you are, the harder it is to move. And it's so difficult for some of them to think of downsizing their house when they've been in it for so long, but then they're to the point where they're in a split level and they can't do the stairs or the maintenance on the exterior anymore.
We actually met each other on a transaction,
Yep.
right? And I've been kind of watching you from the outside because you're like the godmother of real estate in the Hastings area. So tell me a little bit about you. So your mom was a realtor. So you're like real estate family.
Yep.
Right.
She got into it when I was a teenager, and I said I'd never do that. And then I went off to college and said, I'm getting out of this little small town and I'm going to go do whatever. And then through some certain things after a 4-year double major, I decided to take a 2-week class in real estate, which that's a whole nother story of how I decided to do that. But it was interesting. I was a waitress, and they had these contests going between like 3 different stores. And I won all 3 contests. And the next person after me had like half. So I won half what I had. So I was like, wow, I guess I'm good at sales. I didn't even know it. So I wasn't going to school for that. But I thought, boy, I should maybe check into sales. And my mom was like, well, if you're going to do that, there's a real estate class coming up in Madison where I was going to college. So I took a quick 2-week class, loved it, and sold there for a year.
What kind of class? Oh, like, so your real estate
My real estate license. It was a 2-week class in Wisconsin. So I took that and actually sold for Century 21 for a year in Madison before I moved back here.
Really?
Yeah.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
So, and then you moved back because you're born and raised Hastings?
We moved to Hastings when I was like 2. So we're not original Hastingites because there's a lot of people related in town and we don't have relations there.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, it's the small town thing on that,
Yep.
right? Like 14 generations deep.
Yes, yeah.
My grandpa dug the basement of the
Yeah,
the
I don't
building
have that,
downtown,
so.
right? Yeah. So very, very cool.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. So then your mom was a realtor.
Yep.
And-
She started in 84 and then I graduated college and got my real estate license in 94.
So 30 years. So you've seen a
30
lot
years this year.
in 30 years.
Yeah.
So like, so your real estate journey, if I'm thinking about getting to know you, so that encompasses, before marriage and kids and everything, and then all the way through. So
Yep.
you've had to manage all of that.
Had my first house when I was pretty young, probably in 92 in Madison. I had a house. And so I was 20 years old when I bought my first house and got a real estate when I was 22.
Was it like a rental where you put your friends in there?
No, I was in a relationship back then.
Okay.
And we bought a house together. And that didn't work out. And I moved back here afterwards. Yeah.
Well, fun. Yeah. So then did you join forces with your mom or were you like an independent realtor?
No, our teams have always been, we work together in every deal. Okay. And we started out, my mom liked to tell the story that, when I came back from Madison, she was like, what are you going to do? And I was like, I'm not sure yet. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to get my real estate license here. And so she was like, you need to get a real job. And so I started applying places and I was like, she was meaning more stable, And so I started applying a few places and then I said, Mom, we got to meet it for lunch. And so I sat her down and I told her, Mom, I want to do this. So quit trying to talk me out of it. So she was like, okay. But then she said, I'll just give you a little bit of each deal and we'll just, to start out. And then I got going real fast because I wanted to buy a townhome in a development where they were building it. And the builder was from like north side of the cities and didn't like to drive down to Hastings to show the house. And so they were like probably $95,000 twin homes. And so he would just give the buyers the lockbox. And so I bought one, sold one to my friend. And then I asked him, can I do some open houses at your model? Because he didn't do them. He just gave people the lockbox and made them drive up to his house to write a purchase agreement. And so I ended up selling like 15 or 16 in the development. And then started.
So you just asked. You literally just asked.
Yeah, it wasn't. He wasn't even with the United Realty, but I was like, dude, nobody's having these open.
Yeah,
I'll sell these because I have friends starting to buy houses. I was in my early 20s, so I just started doing that, and then kind of sold a lot in that neighborhood, and then resold those as they moved up into bigger homes, and got going with that, and did all the marketing, digital stuff pictures, all the stuff that my mom couldn't do because she wasn't really good at computers. And so I kind of became our marketer, which I loved that. I should have gone to school for marketing. I love doing that stuff.
That's cool. So as you're like, so you get married, you have kids.
Yep.
So you have to balance. How did you do that? How did you have really young kids and sell real estate?
Well, I got married kind of late and had kids late. I was 35 and 37 when I had kids. So I was already established pretty much in real estate by the time I had kids. During the time I was having kids, the market crashed. So my husband, who got into real estate with us in 2004, late 2004, he used to be in law enforcement and was kind of burnt out. And I'm like, quit. I don't need your, I already have a house here. Let's just move, have you move in there. And he was very good at going to gas stations and just chit chat with people. Like, I was like, you could totally do this. So he got his license and started with us in 2004. And then we had kids in 2007, and the market was starting to look a little funny. And so I was like, you stay home with them. So he became Mr. Mom. And then I was working and he was home with them. And then we had somebody come in. And then by 2009, when I had my second, I was back to work within about 10 days after having a baby.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Getting right back at it.
Get right back at it.
Yeah.
He was home with kids. And he kind of did a little real estate on this, a little bit for us. And he's kind of always been the glue behind holding me up so that I could do what I do best.
Yeah. What does your real estate team look like for like realtors and clients watching? Like, what does it look like today? Now, 2024.
So I would say since COVID, my mom, she's 84 now. Yeah. And so about in 2020-ish, she started staying home more, and it was me and my husband. We've always had assistants, part-time assistants, whatever. And so in 2020, when COVID happened, I was like, my husband was kind of home helping kids do school stuff, because it was like they're home all of a sudden, not in school. And so he was making sure that, running around doing signs, helping with whatever he can help with. I was pretty much running the show because my mom was pretty much home with, things because she's her age and stuff in COVID. So I was pretty much running everything with a part-time assistant, and I think we still did 60 some deals, and it got busy. And I was like, oh my gosh. And my nephew asked, he wasn't sure what he wanted to do. He kind of went to school for HVAC, didn't like it, was in it for a while. And he was like talking to me about getting into real estate. And I was like, you don't want to do this. I'm like, you're completely self-employed. It's not the glory thing that people think. You got no insurance, you got no benefits, you got no retirement. I'm like, I wish my husband and I, both weren't in this now that I think about it later on, because, wouldn't it be nice if I had a husband with insurance, so you're not spending $35,000 a year just on insurance and deductibles and things like that. And you've got things like that. But so I tried to talk him out of it a little bit, and I'm like, maybe you should, go into something with sales and make sure you like it first. And then I got busy in 2021, and I'm like, okay, get your license. And he was like, yes. So my nephew has been with us since like January 2nd, 2021. So we're in our 4th year with him. So he's of the new generation. And so he's running around with a lot of buyers on our team and stuff when I'm busy. He's staging a house currently today, as he's actually really good at it because we do some staging, light staging, but we have a storage unit with staging and stuff. So we've got a few empty houses, estates that are coming on. And so today, because I'm doing this and a few other things I got going, he and my husband are grabbing a little furniture from one house, bringing it to the next, and bringing in some pictures and light staging that we do. And then
does that make a big difference?
I think
Staging
rather than an empty house with empty rooms, just having a bed and some end tables and lamps, maybe a picture above the bed, frames the room better for people to visualize it. And I think they just look better. I think it's hard for people to visualize. I think not everybody can do that. And so just putting in some minor, couch, couple chairs, some lamps, things like that. I think it's very helpful for people to visualize the room.
So it's easier to sell a house with furniture.
Yeah.
Than an empty home.
obviously they make me buy very light furniture. So,
Yeah.
because they're the ones doing it.
Yeah. And probably like blow up beds
Yeah,
or something.
we've got
Yeah.
some fold-up frames with some blow-up beds and bedding. We've got a large storage unit that we house that stuff in, and I have 2 tables. So
that's a service you provide.
yeah, we do that.
Okay, cool.
And I do a lot of not just estates, but it feels like helping older people, seniors that are moving into senior living and helping with that. I, a couple years ago, got my senior real estate specialist designation. Maybe it's because of working with my mom for so many years and her age, but a lot of them are her friends or people, you know. And so we do a lot with that. I've done several classes over the last year and a half on downsizing and decluttering classes I've done with some people at the senior center in Hastings. And at our church, we've got one coming up here in October, and I did it earlier in the year. They've got a finishing well seminar where they have somebody come in speaking about estate planning and a couple other, you know, things like that. And they have me talking about helping seniors and stuff, downsizing and aging in place, you know, so doing classes on that kind of stuff.
Very cool. So,
A lot of stuff.
yeah. And you will be a guest on a local real estate show too, right?
Yeah, KDWA Radio in Hastings. We do a real estate talk show. So it's weekly, but it's between me and 2 other agents, and we kind of trade off weeks. And so about every 3 weeks, I'm doing that show. So I just go in and I could chat forever. So about talking real estate, I could talk all day.
And what are the like hot, like, so it's fall 2024, right? Like what are like, is there like kind of like recurring common questions that people ask, or is it random?
It is kind of random. I mean, there's been changes in real estate, but I think that's not changed the industry as much as people really care to know about. I think one big question for people is that I hear over and over is, I want to buy a house, I want to move, but I don't know how to do that because I've got a house to sell. And especially working with seniors. So, you know, sometimes it's a bridge program, bridge loan that they need to get against their house. So, I mean, I ask questions like trying to help them figure out, well, how do I move to a 1-level townhome when I've got a house? And I'm like, okay, so is your house paid off? Is your goal to have an end loan at the end and still have a small mortgage, or are you wanting to take the cash out of your house, selling it, and then not have a loan at the end? So trying to figure out if do they need a bridge loan against their current house to be able to buy non-contingent, because those 1-level townhomes sell so fast. So that market is, you know, trying to figure out that, or do they need a recast loan, which you would know all about.
Oh yeah.
So I think back in the market before the rates went up, I was more specializing in helping people do recast loans a lot because they were selling their house and moving up to a bigger house. But I'm seeing that pool of buyers with the rates higher. They're going, I got a 3% rate. There's not as many move-up buyers. Mm-hmm. So that's when I started really realizing that third or more of our clients were moving to 1-level townhomes or going to senior living centers or something. So I started specializing in that a little bit. So as the market changes, we kind of change with it. So
yeah, I see the move up. Like, I agree with you, because it seems like the move up, you know, so the COVID boom was the 2nd to 3rd time move up.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Or 3rd to 4th to the big dog, right?
Yes.
Like, you know, like, because when you do that 2nd to 3rd or 3rd to 4th, like, it's the big family home.
Yep.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, or luxury rambler for, you know, older, you know, kids living in the basement.
Yep.
Now I'm seeing more of the 1 to 2 as the move up, right? How are you helping? Like, so that's the first time home buyer. Usually they have like the crazy affordable home at this point, right? Like, where it's like, my mortgage payment's $1,100 a month and my house is worth $350. Like, this is like every day we hear from people like that.
Yeah.
How are you helping that person go to the family home? Because that's usually I need to move.
Yeah.
Because I had the 2nd child, I had the 3rd child. We're growing in this house. Like, this, we're gonna explode. And then usually the wife is like, I'm putting the foot down. Like, I know it's cheap, like, you know, like, but we gotta go, right? Like, it just doesn't work anymore.
I feel like there's a lot less of those people making the move right now.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Than there was a few years ago. I think a lot of them are like, do we need to? I think a lot of people are waiting, going, oh, the rates are going to come down. So then when they come down, they just keep waiting and trying to make it in their house, even though they should be moving because they need something bigger. So, but there are still some, obviously, but I think there's less of that than there was some years ago when the rates were at 3%, obviously, because then people would be like moving every 5, 6, 7 years. And now I think people are staying in their home a little bit longer. I think the average I just heard was more like 10 years now.
Yep, that's what I saw too.
Yeah. So, but there still are people that need to do that. I mean, we've still helped a lot of people do that if they can do a recast loan. So we have to talk to them. It's just getting in front of the people and sitting down with them and going, okay, what works for you? Do you want to sell and maybe go live with family for a little bit to find the right house, to be non-contingent? And some of them are okay doing that because they'd rather know exactly what they're getting out of their house to move up to the next house. Like some of them are like, I'm not comfortable having 2 payments. Some of them are like, yeah, I make more money than I did back then. I'll do the recast loan where you put 5% down and then you buy the house non-contingent. And then you put your house on the market. And then after that, or there's more contingent offers now. I'm seeing a lot more people doing contingent offers and accepting it. However, I feel like when somebody they're wanting to buy a house, but they have to sell theirs to buy. I feel like sometimes they get, I hate to say the leftovers, but they get the houses that haven't sold in the first week.
Correct.
So they're getting the ones that in the first week, if they're like HGTV houses, that's what I call them.
Yeah.
And they're pretty, and they sell in the first week and get multiple offers. If they're contingent, they didn't have a shot. So they're getting the ones that didn't sell in the first week or two.
They got to make it the HGTV house.
They have to make it the HGTV house afterwards because they're getting the ones that didn't sell in the first week that are sitting there and the sellers are getting nervous. And so now they're willing to look at a contingent offer.
Mm-hmm. What I'm seeing, though, for those people, is that move-up buyer, they bought when that house cost like $200,000. Right? And they've been in it for 7 to 10 years.
Now it's worth $350,000.
Yeah, and they owe like $125,000 or $150,000. The average consumer's got $200,000 in equity right now.
Yeah.
So they can make it the HGTV house.
Oh,
right?
yeah. They can.
Yeah,
they
because they don't have to put all that money down.
Right? I've got
like,
2 people with contingent offers on houses right now. And trying to get theirs sold is the hard part because it's slower right now.
Totally. But at least usually those are lower priced homes. Right, like
one's not, and one is,
So, but you were saying something, and I think that we should define for the consumer listening so a recast is a process for a conventional mortgage.
Yep.
Right, where you can pay a large lump sum towards the balance of your loan. Usually, you got to make a couple of payments on time.
Yep.
And really in the background, it's because the loan's getting securitized.
Yep.
So once that is done, then they can pay a large lump sum down on the balance of the mortgage, and the payment can be lowered to that. It's an application and a process, but we do it, quite honestly, it's probably 1 in 5 clients right now where they're taking off, they buy a home non-contingent, so they can qualify with both payments.
Yep.
Right? They buy the new house, and then when they sell the old house, they take that equity and they pay it down on the new mortgage, and it lowers the payment down to where that balance is. So you're educating people on that upfront about that.
Yes, I love the recast. I would say I've been doing it probably for 10 years. And I've had years where I've had 15 or more sellers doing that and buyers doing the recast. So that was like my mainstay is, you got somebody that maybe bought their house when they were right out of college and they make enough money now so they can afford both payments for a little bit. But sometimes they're getting nervous now, though, because they're not qualifying as much for the recast because the rate's so much higher.
Yeah, meaning to qualify with both
mortgages.
Payments.
Yeah,
because the new mortgage is larger while waiting to pay that balance down. We're seeing people that will recast by $300,000-$400,000 too, right?
Oh, yeah.
Especially, like you're saying, the more senior, like kind of just going to lump it in by like over 50, type that has been in their home a long time. And I see for that group, does not want to be contingent. They want to use it as a tool. Do you see that?
Yeah,
Like,
I love the recast program.
where it's more like, hey, let's give us some time.
Yeah.
Right? Like I just pre-approved someone on this yesterday. So it's like, this allows us time to be able to get in the new house.
Yep.
We can sell the other house, so we don't have to have all the stuff in the moving truck the day of.
And there's
right?
some people that like to do the recast because they want to close on the other house non-contingent and then move half their stuff out because they have too much stuff in their house because they need a bigger house, and then they move their stuff into the new house and then put their house on the market.
That's a good strategy.
So or maybe they need new carpet and they can't do that because they've got pets. So then they can move into the new house and then they can do that, put it on the market, get top dollar, and then turn around and sell. Because if they put their house on the market while it needed work or whatever, or looked in the condition it did because it's so cluttered, it wouldn't sell for as much.
Yep. I can think of a client, we did that with this year, where they actually waited like 5 months to put their house on the market because they knew if they went in when the house was empty, because they have family, so it was like full, and they could afford both. And they went in, they kind of decked out the old house and got top dollar for it then, right? When they sold it. So it's super smart that you're taking the time.
I'm shocked how many realtors don't know about the recast program.
Yeah.
I run into people all the time that are looking at one of our listings and they're like, well, we got a house to sell. And I'm like, can they buy without selling? Well, I don't think so. I'm like, have they talked about the recast? What's that? So I'm even telling other agents that are looking at my listings that think that they have to sell the house, they should look into that. And a few of them have been able to buy then because they didn't know about this program. And I'm shocked how many realtors don't utilize this. And I don't know, why, or they just don't understand it. But it's so slick.
I think here's what it is. I've been a loan officer for 19 years. You've been a realtor for 30 years. And sometimes we take for granted our knowledge that everybody, after you've done 1,000 deals, whatever it is, like you take for granted, like I've seen so much that then it's like, I take for granted that is the value you offer though. Yeah. Like that's what you're bringing to the table. That's why everybody chooses you versus the competitor, right? Because you have that knowledge. It seems so simple, but it's the reality of it.
Yeah, it's a great program. I love that.
Yeah, I think it's super, super cool. So you've been in real estate a long time. Was there like a fork in the road moment for you? You've kind of mentioned a few that I've heard. Has there been a time that things really changed and you had to adapt and overcome?
Okay, the market crash, 2007, 2009, 2010, when that happened, I remember one house we had listed where they were a little upside down and it was going through a divorce. And so they were like, and they knew us and trusted us, wanted us to help us. And they were with Wells Fargo and trying to do what was called a short sale for the first time with Wells Fargo. I would call and be on the phone for an hour trying to get transferred from place to place, trying to get something done and help them so they didn't go into foreclosure. And then I'd go like, I can't even do this. Oh my gosh. Like, I don't want to do this. My mom would be like, okay, I'll call. So then she'd call the next time. And then we got it done. It took a while. But then learning, and then we were like, I don't want to do these short sales. Well, then that's all it was. It was that or foreclosures. Yeah. So if you wanted to list houses, I got really good at short sales. Okay. So I became they called me the short sale queen in Hastings, probably. I think over the period of time of short sales from 2007 through 2011, even maybe 12, I know I did over 130 of them. Okay. And I those
were hard. People don't realize if we had an offer on a short sale, it was like, this is going to be 4 months to close. And by the way, we don't even know if you're going to close.
Well, and that was because you didn't know if the agent knew what they were doing. Yeah. They would be like, oh, buy one of Christy's short sale. She knows what she'll do and she'll get it done in 3 months and make sure it's done. Mm-hmm. So I don't think I had any that didn't go through. I just figured a process of how to do them. I had a thick book of like all my short sales of calls on to the banks and stuff on how to do them in the process. And I got really good at them. I mean, we probably had 4, 5, 6 going at a time.
Remember we did one that I helped a client and then I bought the house. It's a funny story. Yeah. I helped the client buy this house and they shorted $600,000.
Oh my gosh.
Like on the short. And then that didn't work out for that couple. And we actually bought the house from them. Yeah. And so it was like the greatest deal of all time. Like
I sold some of the best deals and I'm like, why didn't I buy any of them? Well, because I was just trying to tread water, didn't have money in the bank, and was having children at the time.
Yeah, it's just like everybody. Why didn't we all buy like
Yeah.
50 homes in 2010?
Yeah,
It's because no one had any money, people. Like
Yeah.
the stock market, even if you had stocks,
Yeah.
it went from here, it went down like 65%.
There was some people who could really take advantage of that period of time, and I applaud them. Cause
Yeah, I actually had one person I worked with, and he bought like 100 properties.
gosh.
Yeah, and made.
Yeah. So I
Ridiculous.
saw a funny meme about short sales, and it was this realtor with this big glass of wine going, please no short sales again. Please tell me we're not going to go back to short sales, because they were a nightmare. And a lot of realtors had no idea how to do them. And I hope we never have to go back to that.
Yeah, foreclosures weren't nearly as bad. Like, I think like people, there's a misnomer like on that. I feel like the foreclosures back then weren't a lot of the times that hard. The only issue would be like, is there working water or HVAC?
Yes.
There's but there were special programs. That was like such a different world to today.
Oh my gosh.
I don't think agents today understand how easy it is compared to that like 08 to 2012. I feel like after about 2012, it kind of was over. Like after we did that, this seems easy.
This is easy.
Yeah.
So easy. COVID, nothing.
Because then people, the other part is unemployment went crazy. So people are losing their jobs along the way. And
I felt like I was a counselor back then. I had people going through divorce, job loss. I was trying to help people to get out of their house with some grace instead of losing it into foreclosure. And so that was my goal was, I could have been an agent who started selling foreclosures and dealing with the banks, but then you have to kick people out of your homes. I mean, I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be the one going, sorry, you got to leave. We got to clean up your house, get the dumpster, get rid of your stuff. I didn't want to do that. It just seemed ugly. So it was a way to try to help people. And I just it became a niche for a while, and helping people to be able to buy a house 2-3 years later again.
It seems like the short sale agents made it, and the foreclosure agents didn't. So it's kind of weird. Like a lot of the agents that specialized in foreclosures, they were fed all the business. So when that went away, all of a sudden they disappeared because they didn't build relationships.
They didn't. And they also were like, okay, I'm only working 9 to 5 and no weekends, so don't call me after that. Well, good luck doing that in real estate. So
it's a blast from the past. Not everybody. Like I really believe all the skills and everything learned then is so monumental now.
Yes.
That this group of agents that is experiencing this downturn that we just had, right? The ones that survived that are going to be able to say the same things. Like, I learned how I had to adapt when the market shrunk by 40% and everything changed and rates went crazy, and what kind of strategies did we have to do to get people into homes and recast it, like all this crazy stuff. Then in 5 years, those people will be like, oh, I survived that. Right?
Yeah.
Because I felt like if we survived 08, we can survive 2022, 2023, right?
Yeah.
This ain't that hard. People aren't going broke.
No.
It's just prices are high. We have an affordability problem. But when you get to, and also, when the house sells, the median sales price is $400K. Back then, it was like
60, 80,000. I was selling a lot of $80,000, $90,000 houses, townhomes. It was like, oh my gosh.
I had, with first and second mortgages, I remember I had a month where I closed 9 loans. So I was so proud of myself in 2011. Total volume, $450,000. Right? And because they were buying all these cheap houses.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember at that time, this was the hardest. I think I made $5,000. It was this was so hard to make $5,000. This is brutal, right?
Well, we had to literally during the short sale season had to hire a full-time assistant because I got so busy with them that, we were normally, our team would do 60, 70 loans a year or sales a year. We did 105 some of those years. It was we were doing so many because they were so small. And so, it was a lot of work.
It was a lot of work. So it just changes now. I think that brings gratitude to even now.
And I think that's when I kind of became more the lead agent and switched over from my mom because she, it was hard for her to really grasp. I was the one who dealt with them. So that's when I really stepped up in our team and kind of started taking the lead in a lot of things, I think, and then slowly just, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you've been really creating like a niche, and you serve a lot of different groups, but a niche is working with seniors. Like, what are the big hurdles that they're seeing right now?
I think there's just a lot of people that don't know where to go and how to start this. I mean, if they're older and they want to get to a one-level townhome, if they wait too long, the older you are, the harder it is to move. And it's so difficult for some of them to think of downsizing their house when they've been in it for so long, but then they're to the point where they're in a split level or a 2-story and they can't do the stairs or the maintenance on the exterior anymore. And they've maybe waited a little too long, and the thought of moving is overwhelming to them. And so they just don't know where to begin. And so that's where, like, we've got some resources of companies that do downsizing and will help them pack up the house and help them get rid of things. We've got a downsizing gal who does decluttering in a house. After doing a couple classes with her, I hired her at my own house just to go through some rooms and reorganized my office and get rid of stuff. And it's hard because they have emotional connections to so many things. To really get rid of things is difficult. So sometimes, and then kids come in and they don't want your stuff. They don't want the parents' stuff anymore. And the parents all think that they've saved all this stuff for their kids. And this is for this, and they're going to want all this stuff. And they go to the kids, and the kids like, I don't want this stuff. Maybe I take this or that, but that's it. And then the parents are like, what do I do with this stuff?
I remember reading an article about that. Like, no one wants your parents' junk.
They don't.
That was the name of the article, right? Where it's like, like you said, there's
It's an
emotional
emotional thing.
connection to them.
Yeah.
But then it's like the old antique, that's really cool because it was your grandma's from 1890.
The only time they'll
right?
want something is if there's a story or emotion attached to it.
Okay.
So when parents are sitting around at Thanksgiving, they should bring out some pieces of furniture or start telling the kids or grandkids about some of the stories or backstories of this was your great grandma's and they paid layaway to this to get these, and each week went in and bought a piece of this china, and telling them the stories about the backs, the things that they did to go through to get these things. Then if it has an emotion tied, you will see some millennials and some other groups that are starting to kind of take some old things and refurbish them if they have memories attached to them and wanting some of those. But if they don't have a story to it, or it's an estate, I mean, the younger kids go in and they're like, dumpster time, and they're just like
That's what I was just thinking in my head. I was literally thinking like right to the dumpster, and they're like, oh my God, that's grandma's dishes.
Two
right?
estates right now, and one of them isn't even an estate. Mom went to assisted living, and the kids have power of attorney, and they're dealing with it, and taking out 2 dumpsters of stuff. And I'm thinking, I bet if Mom walked through here and saw what you are throwing, she'd be so sad she'd have a heart attack, I mean, because I'm sure that stuff was so hard for her to get rid of, but she got to the age where she waited too long in her home. And that's another thing. If you wait too long, you might have to bypass going to the one-level townhome. You might go right to the nursing home.
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing from you for if you're a senior and you're looking at potentially selling, it's okay to just have a consultation with you.
Just sit down and talk about it.
Yeah.
I just would like them to think long-term a little more ahead of time, because if they want to go to a one-level townhome, if they do it in their early 70s or late 60s, then they might be able to age in place in that one-level townhome all the way. My mom says we're taking her out feet first, she can stay there, and she probably won't have to go to a nursing home because she made that transition to one-level living without stairs, and she probably can stay there all through, her life.
Yeah.
Where if they're in a home that doesn't fit for aging in place and then they wait too long, you might go right to a nursing home and have to live there. Where if you'd move to a one-level townhome at an earlier age, even if you start having some physical changes and medical things going on, you maybe could have aged in place in a one-level townhome. So I just want to get in front of people early enough to really help them think through when is the best time to do this move, and trying to get ahead of the game instead of waiting too long. Had one seller this year where split entry home. He fell in the foyer, broke his pelvis in 2 spots in the nursing home. They wouldn't let him go back home. It's unsafe.
Yeah.
So his wife and daughter had to buy a 1-level townhome. He never got to see it till they closed on it, and he moved right to that and didn't get to go back to the house because he couldn't. So
Yeah, so they didn't even get to pick what he wanted.
no,
Yeah, like that. Yeah, that I can see
yeah,
that. Like, and I saw a stat. It was something like over 60% of retirees are carrying a mortgage.
yeah,
Like that, a lot of retirees think if I sell this house, I can't get a mortgage. That's not true, right? Like,
Yeah.
we just got to build it into your fixed income budget, right? Like, and
Yeah.
maybe there's an opportunity. Like, and another thing I'm seeing, downsizers don't downsize in price too much. Like a lot of people think like
Yes.
when I'm downsizing, it's like I'm selling my 2-story center staircase family home. I say that in real estate because it's like a
Yeah.
classic thing that you see, right?
yep.
And then it's the same price for the retirement house.
And they didn't anticipate that.
Yeah, they
they
didn't.
thought the retirement home would be cheaper because it's smaller square footage.
Yeah.
But it's newer and it's more expensive to build out and on slab, or even with the basement. Then it's cheaper to build up than out.
Yeah. And it's usually nicer a lot of the times I'm seeing.
Yeah, and they're newer, they're nicer, they're more, so they're
Yeah.
just as expensive, if not more.
Energy efficient.
Yeah.
There's all like totally. And they got all the bells and whistles they've been
Yep.
waiting for.
I mean,
right? And the house they're selling, usually a lot of times, it's not the new house.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, we've raised our family here. It's been amazing. 25 years we've spent here, right? But
Yeah.
now it's a 40-year-old home or whatever it is,
Yes.
right? Like, so it's just different. So,
it's a different lifestyle.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's super, super cool. So 2025, what's next year? What do you feel like right now?
Next year. Oh gosh, I got a senior next year. So, boy, I don't know. I'm involved with just so many things right now that I'm kind of like, and personal and work. We've got a lot of work things going on, and then I just have I started a network group, a ladies network group, a couple of years back, and so just had my meeting this morning, and we meet every other week. So I'm doing stuff with that. I've got senior classes coming up. Involved with some church things. Got a marriage retreat we're doing this weekend that we're heading off to, that we're involved with. So I don't know. There's just so many things.
That could be a podcast episode in itself.
gosh. We'll see
Bring
how
you
this
in for the
weekend
real
goes.
estate marriage podcast. I don't know where that would go, but that could be really juicy.
yeah.
That's for sure. What do you think's going to happen in real estate? What do you think's going to happen next year?
Well, I mean, everybody's hoping, obviously, that the rates come down a little bit. I don't anticipate them going back to 3s or 4s ever, or for many, many years. I think that there is a ton of buyers that want to move up in home that have been just waiting because they're waiting for the rates to go down. And I think if they just hear 5s, they might just get off the dime.
I agree.
So if we can just get that rate, please get to the 5s. Just
We've been dabbling.
We've been dabbling.
Like it's just kind of like.
But the
it's
media is behind us.
Yeah. So we've definitely locked
Yeah.
people in the 5s.
Yep.
Right. Obviously, everybody's scenario is different.
know. Yes.
But there's been
Yes.
it's like that hasn't happened for a few years.
But the media doesn't say that. They say
Yeah.
still 6 1/4, 6 1/2. So they're
Yeah.
always a month behind us in reality. So if the media could just get out there and go, it's in the 5s and it's probably not going to go down to the 4s, then people go, okay, maybe I should do it then.
Yeah.
But they keep going. I can't tell you how many people think because the Fed dropped the rate that the interest rates dropped a 0.5 point. And I'm just like, okay, it doesn't work that way. But I will say having a listing in the low 3s that was getting no showings for a couple weeks right before the Fed met. All of a sudden the Fed meets, says that the rates dropped, and they're talking about the Fed rate, but not interest rates. But the reality is people think that's the interest rates. And so then they hear that, and all of a sudden 4 showings come up 2 days later on that listing. So I'm like, okay. So it is helping, but it's just we need the media to get it out there. And that's the problem, because I think people listen to the media and don't understand it because we do it every day and they don't.
Yeah, they don't realize when rates dropped, so the Fed had dropped rates,
Yeah.
it was already priced in. Took about 90 days,
But
the rates were already, geez, Mike here.
When they say
rates coming
rate,
down 1%.
people think interest rate.
Yeah.
They think it's the exact same thing. They, if you're not dealing with this every day and understand the lingo, it is very difficult.
It absolutely is. Man, I feel like our time flew by so fast here for 45 minutes.
Oh, wow.
But I got a lot of respect for you in your business to be able to ride it out this long and be a top producer this long. And I really look at you as like the motherly type, right? Like you're going to be the one that's going to very much hold someone's hand.
Yeah.
And I can see why people would trust you very quickly just by your approach and your style is like so warm and easygoing. Like, but at the same time, you know exactly what you're talking about and how to advise people, which I think I understand why a lot of people work with you and why you just keep being a consistent top producer over and over again.
Yeah.
So thank you again for being a guest.
Absolutely.